In this step, let's focus on two different things. One is we want to remove state from child. The second thing is to directly call parent methods. If you go ahead and see the code for our counter buttons, you'd see that a lot of methods in here are just delegating things. So this method is just delegating the call out to the parent method. So instead of having a lot of code like this, is it possible to simplify this code and directly call the parent function? Let's see how to do that in this specific step. So let's get started with removing the state from the counter button. So we don't really need this state anymore. So I'll actually remove this state from the counter button. And now that we remove the state, I don't need to call the set count methods anymore. And anything else? I guess this is good. We can remove the use state as well. Let's see the component in action. Yep, everything looks good. When I look at the terminal, there is one warning. This is a warning from earlier, which says playing with props is defined but not really used. So what we can do is actually comment this out so that we don't get that warning anymore. Okay, this looks good. So we have all the code compiling as expected. So we have now removed state from the child. The next exercise is to directly call parent methods. How can we directly call the parent methods in the counter buttons, right? We would want to remove this method call out. How can we do that? Can I say directly on click is equal to increment method? Can I say directly in here increment on click is equal to increment method? Will this work? Let's save this. It says increment counter function is defined but never used. So let's actually comment this, save this. There are no warnings here, but if I do +1, nope, it's not working, right? It's saying 0 object, but let's see if the functionality is working fine. Nope, it's actually. So what's going wrong? The thing is, the increment method expects a parameter by, right? How do we pass the by parameter in here? Over here, if you want to pass the by parameter, what we need to do is to make use of arrow functions. So over here, what I would need to do is to define an arrow function. So I would define an arrow function and call the increment method, passing the value of by. Let's save this. Let's see if this works. Let's refresh. +1. You can see the magic happening. So what we are doing is, instead of having increment counter function reference passed in, we are creating an arrow function in here. This is very, very similar to a lambda function. No parameters. What we are doing is we are calling the increment method, passing in by as the value. And now I can do the same thing in here, right? I can remove this call with decrement method by, and I can remove all the code in here. Let's save this and go over to our browser, refresh, +1, -1, +2, -2, +5, -5, +5, +5, +5, reset. Everything looks to be good. No warnings in here. In this section, we played around with the counter example. We understood the different parts of a component. View, which is used to display your HTML. This is done using JSX. We also talked about logic, what you can do to handle clicks of a button, actions that user performs on a page. We also talked about styling your pages, how you can use CSS. We also talked about state, how can you store state with every component. And we also made use of props. How can you pass data to a specific component? I'm sure you had a very, very interesting time in this specific section, and I'll see you again in the next section.